Well, welcome everybody. I'm Hank Rogers, founder of the Blue Planet Foundation. Our moderator should be with us momentarily, so I'm just going to fill a little bit of time by talking about a little bit of history. If you go back far enough, I'm a game designer. I wrote the first role-playing game in Japan, ended up with a publishing company. Gosh, you probably know me for Tetris, because I used to run around the world looking for games, and one of those games I found was Tetris. Ended up going to Moscow in 1989, February, to get the Game Boy rights. Made friends with the author of Tetris, brought him to the US, and so there I was. I went on to start a mobile phone game company, which I sold for a bunch of money, and and I was happily working on my computer game businesses. And well, I guess I struck gold because I sold that company and finally had some money. And a month after I sold the company, I found myself in the back of an ambulance, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me! I haven't spent any of the money yet." And so that's the first thing I thought. The second thing I thought was, no, I'm not going. I still have stuff to do. And in the recovery room, I started thinking about what did I mean by that. It was obviously a very important moment in my life. And I remember exactly what was going through my mind. And so I started thinking, well, what is it? What stuff did I mean by stuff? And I worked it backwards from the end of my life. What was it that was going to upset me if I didn't do anything about it by the end of my life? So I came upon my bucket list, or my missions in life. And my first mission is to end the use of carbon-based fuel. And this mission came to me. I was reading the newspaper in the recovery room, and in the back of the newspaper, a tiny little article. This is in Hawaii now. Okay, you would think that this is really important news for Hawaii. It says, we're going to kill all the coral in the world by the end of the century. And I said, you idiots, you have no idea what that even means. And so I said, no, we're not going to do that. And I tracked it down, what's causing that. And what's causing it is carbon dioxide going into the ocean, causing ocean acidification. Hi, Amanda. I don't know if everyone else can see you. But yeah, so I said, we're not going to do that. What's causing it? Carbon dioxide going into the ocean. Where's the carbon dioxide coming from? It's coming from internal combustion and a whole bunch of other anthropomorphic, meaning things that humans do, sources. And so I started thinking about how can I do this? And I live in Hawaii, and so I thought, well, if I'm going to end the use of carbon-based fuel in the world, let me first do it in Hawaii. Why Hawaii? First of all, I live there; it's my home. Second of all, it seems like it's a mecca for renewable energy. We've got all the wind, all the solar. We've even got geothermal up the wazoo. So I thought, oh, this is going to be a slam dunk, So I started a foundation called the Blue Planet Foundation to work on Hawaii. And rather than me telling you that story, I'm going to have my niece, who was 7 years old at the time that she made this video. She studied 8 hours to make this, to do the narration for this video. So if you could play the video, that would be great. I know.
Hawaii is our home. But our home is changing.
Breaking news on Kauai tonight. Devastating flood, widespread damage. Homes on the verge of collapsing.
The world is changing.
The largest wildfires in the state of California.
Tonight, the rain is over, but the disaster is not.
I worry sometimes when I think about my future. What will it be like when I grow up? Would it be like what my parents remember? Climate change scares me. But we know that it doesn't have to be this way. We can change. That's why I'm grateful for Blue Planet Foundation. For the past 10 years, Blue Planet has been leading the way for clean energy. They think think if we can do it in Hawaii, we can kill the entire world. What a clean energy future looks like. We brought together hundreds of students, just like me, to be a part of the change.
All right, now everybody get your time. Everybody get together. Make your voices. Make your
We joined their families and neighbors to draw the line on climate change.
Our voices really matter, and us being here today is showing something and showcasing to the world that we really care about this issue and we want to take a stand.
And in 2015, the efforts paid off for Hawaii passed the country's first 100% renewable energy. It's nice to know when I grow up, all our energy will come from clean sources. And now View Planet is growing. The V-Power project is working to bring Hawaii's 100% renewable energy law to other states. Now Blue Planet is active every day, making this change happen. They are in our classrooms and in our communities. We still have a long way to go. We have a lot of work to do. I'm excited about the new future we are creating. We can help solve our climate crisis, starting in Hawaii, and we'll inspire the world. But we can't do it alone. Will you help? For my future.
That is the best short summary of the incredible work that Hank Rogers has done. And Hank, I think we need your tech genius to help solve some of the hopping problems with the platform. But you have been such a visionary and also not just a thinker, but a doer. And for me, it was so exciting being at Governor Brown's Global Climate Action Summit a couple of years ago, where he actually referenced the work that you had done in Hawaii and said that California was following suit and committing to 100% renewable energy by 2045 as well. So now there's 100 million Americans who are covered by this commitment. Tell us how you think that it's actually going to be enacted. Commitment is one thing and it's brilliant, but how is it actually happening here on the ground in Hawaii?
So in Hawaii, you know, I can remember a time when I talked about 100% renewable by 2045, everybody thought I was crazy. We were trying to get one, by the way, we were trying to get 2040, and the politicians argued with them. They wanted to give us 2050, and we settled in the middle. 2045 is like an awesome date, by the way, and I'll explain that later. But we didn't, you know, it's not enough just to have a mandate. You got to follow it up and make sure that it actually happens. Otherwise, the mandate is kind of useless. So what we did in Hawaii is we worked with the Public Utilities Commission and with the utility to try to figure out how we're going to achieve this. And so, and with the politicians. And now we have a new law in place that says that the electric company is going to make more money the quicker they switch to renewables. You know, like traditionally, the electric company makes 10% on top of the price of oil. That's how they charge us for electricity. And we pay in Honolulu, we pay like 32 cents per kilowatt hour. And their cost is 20 cents. You know, oil is 20 cents, and there's all other costs. But renewable energy is less than 10 cents. So if you can imagine, if you add up their costs and their profit, we can increase that profit and we would still save money. We did a back of the envelope calculation. Over the life of this legislation, it would save, if we went to 100% renewables, it would save ratepayers $7 billion.
Wow.
There's only 1.5 million of us, so that's a lot of money.
And as an economist, that really resonates. And knowing now that solar and renewables are in fact the best solution is just fantastic. You've been a real visionary. I know when I asked you about the Mars moonshot, and you said, but hey, Amanda, where do you think solar panels came from? This need to actually think about innovation and creativity and making these big bets. And who would have thought 20, 30 years ago just how cheap photovoltaics would have become. It's a 7-fold decrease in price. So we're so grateful for brilliant visionaries like you. Because islands are really on the forefront of climate change, and we see it here in Hawaii with Waikiki being sandbagged. You did some amazing work recently in Puerto Rico. So after that massive big hurricane that killed 200,000 people, you really partnered with the Red Cross to build back better. Tell us a little bit about what you were able to do and how that model worked with the recent earthquake.
Yeah, so sidebar to the Hawaii story, I'll get to this Puerto Rico in a moment, is that we passed a law that basically gave rebates for solar installations. And everybody got together and thought we would have, I don't know, a couple of years we would have 30 megawatts of rooftop solar. Well, in a couple of years we had 300 megawatts of rooftop solar, and the electric company goes, whoa, we can't handle that much on our grid. And so then I started thinking, because I want to take my house, I want to put solar panels on my house in Honolulu, and the electric company said, no, you can't have panels. And it's like, who the hell are they to be able to tell me whether I can or cannot have panels? And so I said, okay, well, I'm just going to disconnect from the grid so I have nothing to say about it. So actually, I took my ranch off grid, took my house off grid, and I learned how to go off grid. And then I started helping other people, ended up with a company. It's called Blue Planet Energy. We do battery systems, and the batteries there are, how can I say, they're safe, meaning they never can catch on fire for any reason. They're cool. They don't need a cooling system. They don't have any moving parts, so to speak. They last 20, 30 years, and they're non-toxic. They're made out of materials like lithium, iron, and phosphate, which are all common elements, if you will. It's none of that cobalt stuff. So we were doing these batteries all over the place. We've got 200 dealers around the world, and somehow the Red Cross got wind of us, and they told us they have a project in Puerto Rico where they want to fix the shelters that all failed during the hurricane. How do they fail? All the power lines went down, no power, no refrigeration, no light. What kind of shelter is that? And so their plan was to put solar panels on all the schools, and they looked for a battery that was non-toxic. And we're the only game in town when it comes to non-toxic off-grid batteries. Lead acid is nasty. Lithium iron, nickel, cobalt, manganese, the stuff that's in your phone or the Samsung Galaxy or in my Tesla, that stuff, if you treat it wrong, if you overheat it, if you puncture it or whatever, it will spontaneously combust. And it's not like a fire, it is like fireworks kind of fire. And of course, toxic fumes come out. So Red Cross didn't want to have anything to do with toxic fumes in a school. So we retrofit 120 schools in Puerto Rico with batteries. And recently they had an earthquake and they all operated just perfectly. Everybody got to go, refrigeration, lights, and all that. So that's really what needs to happen everywhere. Every school everywhere needs to be able to have that capability of, it's called islanding. When the power goes down, you just are able to operate without anything and still have activities like emergency services. Are you on mute?
I know that Indo-PACOM here is thinking about that model that you have so successfully pulled off in Puerto Rico and thinking about how they can make that work across the Pacific. So I know we have Julianne Wrigley with us today too, who like you is an incredible visionary, and she has seen Hawaii as a model for innovation and sustainability grounded in indigenous wisdom. And we have this beautiful image of Maui, the legend of Maui harnessing the sun, which is really what you've been able to do and help Hawaii as a state be able to do. Now, I know that you have a much bigger vision, Hank. You are one of these people that has an idea, tests it, makes it work, and then takes it to the planet, as you have with Tetris and Blue Onyx. So tell us a little bit about your plan now for the Blue Planet Alliance. You have Blue Planet Foundation, Blue Planet Energy, Blue Planet Research, and now you have Blue Planet Alliance. Tell us about your plans.
So originally, when I first started the foundation, the idea was let's do Hawaii, and then from there, let's help the other islands in the Pacific. They're sort of, most of the Polynesian islands, I would consider Hawaii to be big brother because we've got the bigger economy and so on. And the other islands are even worse off than we are. You know, we pay up to 50 cents per kilowatt hour, but there are islands in the Pacific where they pay up to $1 per kilowatt hour. $1. And like, it's like the biggest money suck in those islands. Anyway, that was the original idea. But it turned out to be easier to help other states. And so the Blue Planet Foundation is actually helping other states. Why? Because the legislation, the system of government is similar from state to state. When you go from island to island, it's very different. There's different structures, you know. You will not find a PUC, Public Utilities Commission, on most islands, for example, or some it's government controlled, some it's controlled by some rich family. So the alliance, first of all, the alliance is focused on getting other jurisdictions, meaning for now, for me, other countries, to go off grid or 100% renewable. And so we're in negotiation right now with the small island developing states, SIDS. There are 57 member states, and it's our plan to help them, first of all, have the mandate, and second of all, follow it up with a business model for their existing utility so they make more money the quicker they switch to renewables. And that is what we plan to do. That is our next step. So I think that is going to be, other countries are going to be watching that. And there are other countries, there are islands which are not countries. So there's tons of islands that need exactly the same thing. And the problem with most islands is that they're different sizes. So, you know, the bigger companies are interested in the bigger islands, and the smaller islands are almost not interesting for anybody because they're hard to get to. So I think we need to set up some kind of an, I don't know, organization that covers all of the islands from small to large.
And it's exciting to see that already Guam has joined on to the commitment to 100% renewable energy. I know the governor signed on to that, having looked at what you had done in Hawaii. So I think it's very exciting to see we have a model that's worked. You've been able to use people power to get legislative change. And then we've seen alignment so that the utility is actually making more money by doing good. And that alignment of values, I think, is so exciting. Now for islands, there's this added value that you've already proved in Puerto Rico, where after a disaster, we know that with the climate crisis, disasters are becoming more frequent and more intense. So there's a real win-win-win scenario here for being able to take the Blue Planet Alliance global. Now, Hank, when do you think you will be signing this agreement with SIDS? Is it a year off, 3 years off? What's the time frame?
No, I think it's weeks off. We're
fantastic.
You know, going. It's a multi-government organization on the SIDS is, and so they kind of need to get buy-in from lots and lots of governments, which is not an easy thing. It's like trying to get the UN to decide something. You know,
now, having been ambassador to the UN, I have to say I agree with you. I totally understand. But I think what's exciting, having been head of the New Zealand Development Agency and having worked with the EU and others to try to bring renewables across the Pacific, I was so excited, as you know, when I came to your ranch and actually saw that integrated model that you have, which includes hydrogen. So tell us a little bit about what you do on the ranch and how you're using hydrogen as an innovative fuel of the future and what that might be able to do to help islands too.
All right, so my ranch is 28 acres. I'm surrounded by like 100,000 acres of conservation land. So you might as well think of my ranch as an island. There's nobody next door. It's just an island without water around it. And so when we took off grid, there's a couple of things you need to know. When you're grid tied, which means that if you don't have enough electricity, you can get it from the electric company, you can get away with a certain size of solar panel array. But if you go off grid, you have to make it work on a cloudy day. So you need more panels than you would if you were grid tied. So we have more panels, and it works. It just works great. We've been 7 years off grid, and it works like a charm. Now, what happens to that solar array on a sunny day is you have all kinds of extra energy. What do you do with the extra energy? And so we started thinking about that, because that's not only our problem, that's going to be the problem of every island everywhere. We're going to have to overbuild solar so that they have enough power even on bad days. What do you do with the extra power? And so we decided that we should turn that into hydrogen. Now, hydrogen, we use it as a backup fuel. So we store enough hydrogen at the ranch so that if we have like many consecutive days of darkness or a weather condition, then what we do is the hydrogen then kicks in and charges the battery. So it's our backup fuel. That's one. But the other side of it is hydrogen is a fuel that you can use for moving ground transportation. Toyota has decided that they're not going to go the way of batteries. They're going the way of fuel cells and hydrogen. It's still an electric car, but instead of having a battery, now you have a hydrogen tank and you have a fuel cell. So trucks and buses can run on hydrogen, no problem. And it's already happening in China. If we just paid attention to what they're doing and started doing that same stuff ourselves, we need to beat them at their own game at some point. They're the ones producing all the hydrogen buses in the world right now. So that hydrogen it's not as good as a battery, because when you make hydrogen and then you get the energy back, you lose about 50% of the energy, whereas our batteries are like somewhere 98% efficient. So for short-term storage, use batteries. For long-term storage, because it's actually, the hydrogen is free, then you make the hydrogen. And eventually we can clear all ground transportation by having cars that are battery operated or hydrogen fuel cell operated.
And this is what's so exciting, that in fact, a new approach, a sustainable future, is actually positive in every way. And when we've looked at what's happened with the COVID pivot, there's been some $13 trillion spent around the world. And the latest data that I looked at, being the boring economist I am, is that less than 20% of that is actually going to green investment, when this would be the perfect opportunity, as the CEO of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, has pointed out, to build forward better, not build back, but build forward better. So, Henk, what you're doing is so inspiring, and I know that the work that Lightworks at ASU is doing, and that you're working closely together and have had the team out at your ranch. But I really just wanted to give a shout out to the new Global Futures Laboratory, which you're on the board, the Julianne Wrigley Global Futures Laboratory, which has just been formally launched at ASU. And this notion of shaping tomorrow today, it's visionaries like you and like Julie and the support crew that she has at ASU who are really helping us envision a better future and then creating the pathways to that future. So you have all the practical answers, and it's always such a joy to speak with you. And anyone who has the opportunity to go to Henk's ranch, it is just a mini miracle. So if you pledge to the 100%, he may invite you, right, Henk?
Well, there you go. So Fridays are the best day. We do a tour at 3 o'clock, and then from 4:30, it's Poo-Poo Friday. Poo-Poo is the Hawaiian word for hors d'oeuvres. So it's potluck. Everybody brings food, and we eat, drink, and be merry. So that's every Friday night for us and our neighbors. Well, COVID has sort of put a damper on that one, but please come and visit on the Big Island of Hawaii.
It's fantastic. And Henk, there's one quick question. We have a couple of minutes left. Can the excess solar energy also be used to desalinate water? From Ronald.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, but I have been researching desal, and there is something happening in one of our national laboratories where they believe they have a way to desalinate water that produces energy, not takes energy. So there you go. And I think, for the future, we really need to take all coastal cities and use desal, and then keep the water that's coming from the mountains in the mountains so they can help reforest. One way of looking at what's going on in California is that there's just not enough water. It's a drought. So what are we doing? We're having people water their lawns or drink that water when we can desal it if it's on the coast. That's got to be the way of the future. Leave the river water to irrigate the forests and the farmlands upstream.
Thank you. I think that's so exciting when you look at the enabling technologies that we have today. And I want to leave everybody just with these thoughts, is that not only did Henk have the vision, but he was able to persuade government to make the policy change, and actually spoke to the Interparliamentary Union of 178 parliaments around the world. And we're hoping to work with Henk soon on some training modules for parliamentarians to really extend the reach of Blue Planet Alliance, as he will launch it in a few weeks with the SIDS. So it's having the vision, it's being able to influence the policymakers, it's having the tech, all of which we have. Now we need the partnerships, the SDG 17 partnerships. And Henk, I'm so honored to be on your board of the Blue Planet Alliance, and to have you on the board of the Julianne Wrigley Global Futures Laboratory. Together, we can really make a difference globally. Thank you for your brilliance. Thank you for your commitment and your inspiration. And we look forward to helping you promote and support the Blue Planet Alliance. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Aloha.